This is section 11.2, composite functions. Tonight's homework is page 669. Through 672. We're going to do numbers 25 through 36. There are some word problems today. You're not allowed to be afraid of, because we love words. All right. Let's go over the definition of an inverse function. Sorry, Coach. Can you see, Kanal? Can you see? All right. See you snack. All right, so we're going to let f and g be two different functions such that f of g of x is equal to x. Let's go ahead and highlight that. All that means is if you take the function g and insert it into the function f, you should always end with x if it's an inverse. If you do not end with an x, then it is not the inverse. They are not inverses of each other. Let me say that one more time. It's a little hard to see. Let f and g be two functions such that f of g of x is equal to x. So similarly, it will go in the opposite direction. So g of f of x is also equal to x. So that means that if I take f of x and put it inside g of x, I get x as well. Then the function g is called the inverse of f. And we write that as written as f to the negative 1. That's how we write it. So a simple way of writing this or reading this, two functions are inverses if the composition in both directions guys, your talking is coming out in the video. Shh. Always gives you x. You always end with the x. If you don't end with an x, then they are not inverses of each other. We're going to go ahead and jump into an example. So when one function is composed of the other function, that's called a composite function. They are composed of each other. That means one function is inserted into the other one. Okay? So all we're going to do is take one function and put it into the other function and see if we get an x. Okay? So what we're doing is something like this. Example 1. Let's say we want to verify that that the functions f of x equaling 2x minus 1 and g of x equaling 1/2 x plus 1 are inverses. So the way we find the solution is by plugging it in. The first one that we're going to be plugging in is f of g of x. That means I'm going to take g of x and put it inside f of x. Here's g of x. I'm going to take this function and put it inside f of x. Let me show you what that means. That means I want f with g of x in it. So for those of you who are maybe a little bit confused, usually we plug in numbers. We'll plug in 0, 1, 2. Yeah, they don't want me to plug in numbers anymore. They want me to plug in a whole dang formula. That's what we're doing. And when we're done, when we plug in this whole formula, I better get x when I'm done, or it's not an inverse. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this whole formula and plug it into the other formula. So they want, instead of me plugging in to f of x, instead of me plugging in 0 or 1 or 2, no, you're not going to do any of that. You're going to plug in this whole formula. So far, so good? All right, simple. There's a 2 here. Usually I'd plug in a number, but I'm not going to plug in a number. I'm going to plug in this whole thing instead of x. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to do 2 times 1/2 x plus 1 minus 1. You guys, stop clicking your markers and pens. Shh. So now we get to clean this up, and what do we hope to get? Just x. All right, so let's clean it up. What should I do first? Do our parentheses. We can distribute this, or we can multiply this first. What's 2 times 1/2? 1. It's just 1, and you're left with x plus 1, and then minus 1.
And Heidi stand hers, but she has the wrong blue sheet, so you have to get rid of it.
Who?
Heidi.
Heidi, go get it.
I was back there, so no, I didn't know that. Sorry.
So then what's x plus 1 minus 1? What happens with these guys? And then you just get x. Is that what we wanted? Yeah. We just want x when we're done. If we get x, just the letter x by itself when you're done, then you're so far so good. How come I'm only saying so far so good? Why am I not done? What else do you have to do? You put g inside of f, but you also need to put f inside of g. You need to go in both directions. Okay? So this is the first part of the solution. Now we need to show g of f of x. So I need g with f in it this time. So that means I'm going to do 1/2. And instead of x, I'm going to plug in 2x minus 1. And then plus 1. Thanks, Coach.
No, thank you.
Please excuse my dear Aunt Sally means that I am not allowed to do this in any order that I want. So I have a 2x minus 1 and then a plus 1 right here. It's all in the same parentheses. So what can I do with this plus 1 and minus 1? What's going to happen to those two bad boys? Thanks, bud. Appreciate your help. This goes away. What am I left with? Hello, what am I left with, guys? Talk to me.
2x.
1/2 and then a 2x. Good job. What's half of 2x?
1.
It's just x. Is that what we want? That's how I know that these two bad boys are inverses. How can I check this using a table? Don't yell it out. How can I check if these are inverses? Using a table. Raise your hand when you can tell me. 2 people? We've done this for the last 2 days. How can I check, Heidi? I need you guys to look at your notes if you're not sure. How can I check by using a table if these guys are inverses? 1 hand, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This table, nobody? Nobody knows how to use a table? Michaela? Wanda, nobody knows here? Zuhair? What do the tables have to look like if they are inverses? You guys know what I mean by tables? Like tables? The numbers? Okay, that's what I want you to check with your group. 10 seconds in your group, make sure everybody gets it. How do you know by a table if they truly are inverses?
Definitely be on
Cyan, how do you know that these are inverses? How can you check by using a table? What should be true about the tables? They should be switched. Do you guys know why I'm not saying opposite? Because opposite means opposite sign. Like the opposite of 5 is -5. Does it have to be opposite? Be careful. They have to be, what's the word? Switched. Okay? Opposite means like if one is 5, the other one's -5. That's not true, right? Kyle, sit up. So what we want is they need to be switched. So that's how I can check using a table. So on my quizzes or tests, I'm not just going to hope that I'm right. You can check by using, you're going to be using composite functions, but at the end, make sure by doing what? Checking it how? Plugging in table points. And what should be true about both tables? They should be switched. Then move on to the next question. Okay? All right. Can you guys pull up tonight's homework for me real quick? I want to do number 25 with you. Ali, when you get it, tell me, because I need to write it down. Yes, please. Guys, why are you staring at me? Let's go. Pull up your homework. Let's go, girl. You got it, Zoe? What is it?
F of x equals -8 plus x over 2. And g of x equals 2x plus 8.
All right, let's go. We want to do both composite functions. I'm going to highly recommend that you do them side to side. One is f of g of x, and the other one is g of f of x. And at your age, I always used to highlight the inside one because then you'll know which one goes into which. You have to do both ways, but this means take g of x, put it inside f of x, take g of x, put it inside f of x. So -8 plus 2x plus 8 over 2. And this one is 2 times -8 plus x over 2 plus 8. Here it's all, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally at this point. Make sure you do PEMDAS. There's a plus sign here, so basically -8 plus 8, these are going to go away. So I'm left with 2x over 2. These cancel, and I'm left with x. Here I have this 2 and this 2, so I know these are going to cancel. So I'm left with -8 plus x, and then plus an 8. These go away, and I'm left with x. What do you guys think? Pretty easy? How can I check? Let's make some table points. I'm gonna plug into g of x since it's easier, and then see if they are switched for f of x. So g of x is equal to 2x plus 8. F of x is equal to negative 8 plus x over 2. So I'm just gonna plug in 0, 1, and 2 here. If I plug in 0 here, I get 8. If I plug in 1, I get 10. If I plug in 2, 2 times 2 is 4, I get 12. If I switch these, I should get 8, 0, 10, 1, 12, 2. Let's see if it works. Plug in 8 here. Negative 8 plus 8 is 0. Divided by 2 is 0. Plug in 10 here. Negative 8 plus 10.
2.
That's 2 divided by 2, which is 1. Plug in 12 here. Negative 8 plus 12. That's 4 divided by 2 is 2. So it checks. God bless you. Do number 26 as your doyo, please. Number 26. My apologies. Example 2. I'm going to just walk you through this real quick. They tell us that the length of a diagonal of a right rectangular prism can be determined using this equation. Go ahead and write down this equation for me, please. D equals the square root of L squared plus W squared plus H squared. I know. I'm going to rewrite it. D equals square root. L, that's length, width, and height, all squared. And then add them up. Then all you need to write down is the length is 8, the width is 4, diagonal length is 12. And then they want us to determine the height. L is 8, W is 4, and they want us to find H. So what we're going to do is we're going to plug and chug, guys. 12 equals the square root of 8 squared squared plus 4 squared plus H squared. Sorry, that probably made it worse. Now I'm going to zoom into the steps so you guys can see how you're going to find your solution. This is what we're going to expect it to do in tonight's homework. They're going to have 4 letters. There's 4 letters. I'll give you 3. Solve the last one. There's 3 letters. I'll give you 2 of them. Get the last one. There's 5 letters. I'll give you 4. Just get the last one. That's what the second part of tonight's homework is. Question for you. If H squared is 64 and you can get a negative 8 and an 8, how come they crossed out the negative 8? What are we finding?
You
can't have a negative height. So don't leave both answers. Read what you're asked to find, and if it's a height, obviously you're not going to have a negative height. Mia, you good? Copy this down, please. After you're done, give me a summary, please. Today I learned.